And welcome back again. Yours truly, Anthony Parker. And this is Keeping It Honest. We don't just keep it real, we don't just keep it simple, we keep it honest. None of my little promos today because, well, this is a late and fast breaking news. So we decided when there's news coming up that's really last minute, we're going to try our best to come on and talk about it. You know this lady right here? She is Claudia Gay. She is the former president of Harvard, Harvard University. She decided to step down. We're going to talk about that in a moment. You have any comments, questions? You can email me. Email address is parkerman2011 2011 at gmail.com, parkerman2011 at gmail.com. You can text me, leave a voicemail if you like. That number is 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. And also go to our About page. And on there, we have a selection where you can press Patreon. You hit that, and then you'll be able to get on our Patreon website. Excuse me. So if you're wondering what Patreon is, it's kind of like PBS. So what it is, if you've seen some of my shows, and you know the kind of stuff that we do on this show, we try to put a lot of information out there for you to look at. We give you the left side, we give you the right side, and at the end of the day, hopefully you decide. And if you don't like what you see, then that means we've done our job. So go on to Patreon. We have 3 levels, 3 tiers. And this is, let's say you're watching a PBS show and it says sponsored by so-and-so. So people, foundations that sponsor those shows, that's what keeps them going. And Patreon is the same thing. The more stories you want to hear, the more stories you want to see. And if you find out you can't get it anywhere else, you can get it here and you see what we do, then please support our program. So there's 3 tiers. There's 3 different amounts that you can do to support us. And it's monthly. It's very low. Check it out. And then also we have a Substack page, and that's where we do writing. So stay tuned for some articles that, we try to put a Parker twist on it. Excuse me. So Claudia, she decided to resign after all the pressure. Some of it was because of plagiarism. We did a show about plagiarism where we had some of the stories that she wrote combined and next to some of the stories that she might have copied. Harvard, they said they stood ground with her. She was taking hits all across the world. So now she decided to resign. And what is that going to do for people who maybe supported her, or after all this, what is the end result of her resigning? Well, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to read this letter. And this letter is pretty much written not too long ago. So I'm going to give you background on this letter that was written. It was a opinion piece from a writer. He wrote for CNN, and his name, which I really like this letter, is Jeremy Sari. Okay. And so he wrote this letter called The Real Lesson of Claudia Gay's Resignation. But first, let's talk about Claudia Gay and what happened. Harvard professor resigns after mounting plagiarism accusations. So Claudia Gay, she faced backlash, as I talked about, over the university's response to anti-Semitism on campus, all over campus, all over the world, which led to increased scrutiny of her academic record. And it's interesting because when she went to Congress to talk about this, as far as Harvard and the war in Gaza, she or Harvard didn't tell Congress that she was currently under investigation for plagiarism. And Congress was wondering that. So after this newspaper kind of put it out there that she was under investigation, and people started comparing her work against other people's work, they found out, okay, well, she's done a lot. She's a president, and she has plagiarism accusations, and she didn't tell Congress. Well, that's interesting to know. So Claudia, she announced her resignation because she got in a bunch of problems with plagiarism accusations, and some people called for her to respond to the Hamas-led attacks on Israel, and she didn't really respond to where it, I guess, appeased everybody. So she decided to step down immediately, like, I'm out. So background again, the legacy. She was Harvard's first Black president, the first Black one, and the second woman to lead the university. You think of that. Boy, she's the first Black one and the second woman. Is there going to be pressure on other people? We're going to have to find out. So she will have the shortest run in office of any Harvard president since its founding in 1636. So in this letter announcing her decision, she said that after consulting with members of the university's governing body, the Harvard Corporation, really, it has become clear that it is in the best interest of Harvard and for me to resign so that no community and that our community can navigate this moment of extraordinary challenge with a focus on the institution rather than any individual. So was Claudia the face of Harvard? Yes, she was. And then I think that the reason that she resigned was because there were going to be a lot of donors who were dropping. And as far as the country, excuse me, they would get some funding taken away. Because if you're not doing what you're supposed to do as far as colleges, if there's anybody that feels like they're threatened, and it's in their records, you can read this, and this is for colleges, period. If there's anybody that feels threatened, any kind of prejudice, then federal funding will be taken away from that particular college. So you're looking at the federal funding, and you're looking at the donors that are saying, okay, there's too much pressure. We're going to leave. And so Harvard said, okay, pretty much, you know what, Gay? You're probably going to have to leave. So at the same time that she was having the pressure over the Hamas war, she was also getting the pressure for the plagiarism. So she continues. Amidst all of this, it has been distressing to have doubt cast on my commitments to confronting hate and to upholding scholarly rigor, two bedrock values that are fundamental to who I am, and frightening to be subject to personal attacks and threats fueled by racist anonymous. That's what she wrote. So last year when she became the president, remember now, second president, female, and the first African American. It was a breakthrough moment for the university, probably thinking maybe we could bring more minorities to our college. Now she's the daughter of Haitian immigrants and an expert on minority representation and political participation in government. Wow. So she knows all that. So she took office just as the Supreme Court rejected the use of race-conscious admissions at Harvard and other universities. And we did a story about this too. She also became a major target by billionaire investor William A. Aikman. And I read a letter about his letter that he wrote to Harvard regarding anti-Semitism. So Gay's resignation came after the latest plagiarism accusations. So this is interesting. People say the newspapers aren't around. Well, the Washington Free Beacon, this is a conservative online journal, led the campaign against Gray over the past few weeks. And they're the ones that pretty much said that she was plagiarizing other professors. So think of this, if that newspaper, even though it's online, the Washington Free Beacon, if that newspaper hadn't put out that story about plagiarism, there wouldn't have been more accusations and pressure on her to resign. Way to go, newspapers. Still doing what we do, but having that combination of the internet. Speaking of the internet, you are watching yours truly, Keeping It Honest, with Anthony Parker Alexander. Have any comments or questions, you can email yours truly. It's parkerman2011@gmail.com, parkerman2011@gmail.com. And you can, give me a call, drop a line. Telephone number is 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. We are talking about the real reason of Claudia Gay's resignation. Was it the plagiarism accusations? Was it the mounting pressure of the Hamas war? Was it the funders of the college? Was it the community? Was it the world? So there's this opinion piece I'm going to read to you now. It's called The Real Lesson of Claudia Gay's Resignation. And this is by, again, Jeremy Saru. So he is the author, and you will like this commentary, of several books. Civil War by Other Means, America's Long and Unfinished Fight for Democracy. And he hosts a podcast called This is Democracy. So the letter that I'm reading is from him. But I'm going to give you some footnotes in between the letter. So here goes. American universities are the envy of the world, but those who control them do not seem to understand why. Students and scholars from every continent make enormous personal sacrifices to gain admission to U.S. campuses. And in recent years, applications to the most prestigious schools have increased dramatically. The top universities offer extraordinary facilities for study, research, artistry, athletics, and mingling among talented and diverse people. Let me take a break right here, real quick, clear my throat. So here we go again. See, my voice goes deeper a little bit when I drink that. So the purpose of all this investment, however, is poorly explained to the rest of the world. American universities offer dynamic spaces for learning and discovery, unparalleled by in any other institution. And they promote efforts to improve the world in ways large and small. On most campuses today, that compelling mission does not have the defenders it deserves. The resignation of Harvard University's president, Claudia Gay, after only 6 months and following punishing scrutiny for public remarks about the Israel-Hamas conflict and allegations of plagiarism, reflects a deepening divide between the mission of the university and the role of the university president. Footnote: should there be separation, is the university president the face of the university? Back to the letter. Along with Gay, Liz McGill at the University of Pennsylvania resigned, in part because of immense pressure from donors and others, but also in part because they could not pull their campuses together around a compelling articulation of their institutional mission amidst violent controversy. Footnote: yeah, you should just have a statement. Back to the letter. This is a difficult challenge. It is indeed an old challenge, one that predates the fulminating controversies faced by both leaders. It is one a new generation of university leaders must now confront head on. The frustrating reality is that most current university leaders are ill-prepared. Footnote: is that because there's a different way of being a university president because you're younger compared to the older ones? Back to the letter. How does one become a university president today? The process for selecting these figures is strange and feeds the problems most recently on display. The committees that anoint college leaders are almost always secretive or lacking in transparency, and at top schools, they are usually dominated by voices far removed from what should matter most: teaching and research. And I like how they breaks this down. I like how he breaks this down. Search committees for presidents and deans prioritize fundraising, public relations, and managing athletics much more than the quality of candidates' teaching or scholarship. Presidents are not chosen as intellectual leaders, They are administrators for what are, in fact, large university corporations with powerful external stakeholders. Unsurprisingly, then, presidents are expected to cater to the external pressures, and as a result, they often prioritize that demand above their main responsibility, education. Many presidents and deans have not taught in a classroom or worked in an archive or a laboratory for at least a decade. So that's interesting. When you have professors, is that okay now? That you're president of the school, but you've got 10 years behind you? Is that okay? All right, back to the letter. That's because to get ahead in the university bureaucracy, you have to act like a bureaucrat, keeping various groups satisfied by balancing budgets and avoiding controversy. Much has been made by politicians and others about the supposed rise of the woke university environment, typified in these critiques by what critics deem selectively issued public statements of political support or condemnation. But the most political statements from universities almost never come from their leaders. Footnote, something to think about. When presidents pursue a political goal, diversity is one, it is because powerful groups inside and outside the university have demanded evidence of action, as was the case after George Floyd's terrible murder by Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin in the spring of 2020. Footnote, let's not forget that wasn't too long ago. Back to the letter. In that case and many others, university leaders followed trends and they avoided other difficult issues, including inequality, until it was unavoidable. Too often, college professors are chosen not to lead for a purpose, but to keep the most influential members of their communities comfortable. Like other politicians today, they serve interest groups. Footnote, think about that. Letter. The most organized groups have money and political connections, and they are largely outside the university. Their influence has grown in recent years as universities are more dependent on outside funding and placating meddling politicians. Footnote, they kind of go hand in hand, I can tell you. Letter. Meanwhile, the least powerful interest groups on college campuses are researchers and students committed to learning and scholarship. Students and scholars have remarkably little influence over basic decisions about resources and priorities on campuses, and that already meager influence has declined as the power of donors and political figures have increased. Certainly, the auster of Gay and McGill is evidence to that power, but it's hardly the only example. This power grab goes far beyond the missteps or targeting of two university leaders. Just look at how the size of football stadiums has grown, with more luxury boxes for donors, while libraries and other student academic resource budgets have shrunk. Footnote, it's all about the money. Letter. Despite common assumptions, the leaders of our campuses are rarely active scholars or committed advocates. The former are too focused on research and the latter are too controversial to ascend what is a steep and unforgiving administrative track. Universities cultivate deans, provosts, and presidents who keep their heads down and go along with conventional wisdom and the power behind it. Although some of this is unavoidable in any large organization, recent events highlight how far this dynamic has averted us from the mission of higher education. After Hamas launched the deadliest and bloodiest attack on Jews since the Holocaust, and then Israel retaliated with some of the most deadly attacks on civilians in recent memory, university leaders were largely absent. Like this, footnote. Back to the letter. A lot of crickets. The violence affected many of their students and scholars directly, and it horrified almost everyone. Judgments of cause and blame obviously differed widely, but apathy or disinterest from leaders only mattered worse as angry fighting students felt neglected. And they did feel neglected, as you've seen throughout the past couple months. Universities were crying, and sometimes the world. Letter. The mission of universities clearly called for immediate intensive efforts to enable learning excuse me, and discovery around these issues, providing a safe and free space for all groups to feel respected and included, so long as they respected and included others. So if all that happening, footnote, and everybody knew it was happening, why weren't people taking care of this as quick as they should have? Letter. The hesitation of university leaders most notably before Congress when Gay McGill and MIT President Sally Kornbluth were called to testify and face sharp criticism by GOP Representative Elise Stefanik. Now, one thing I like about her, and she's of New York, she did ask questions and put it out there. But they showed that they were uncomfortable with difficult moral issues, fearful of offending any vocal group, and committed, to quiescence over engaged discussions, including legitimate protests. They had no answer for anything. That was my footnote. Now back to the letter. By not taking a side or saying everything depends on context, they pleased no one and antagonized everyone. That is not how educators who thrive on the study of controversial issues behave. It is how administrators are taught to act and keep their careers moving forward. Presidents Gay, McGill, and their counterparts would have been better served to lean into controversy, clearly articulating the humanistic values behind all learning at universities: freedom from violent act for one's identity, justice for past wrongdoing, and rights of self-defense and self-governance. The complex application of these values merits attention, not avoidance. And that's what they did. They avoided all of this. Again, my footnote, when they could have just tried to deal with it, because unfortunately it was there, and that's a part of life. Back to the letter. Above all, presidents should encourage the widest possible range of fact-based opinions, and all groups, regardless of their power, should be made to understand that they are full respected parts of an evolving campus conversation. Leaders should shun and limit the expression of opinions that recklessly disregard learning, bullying others, or harass particular groups. Calls for genocide like racist slanders or sexist slurs obviously fall into this latter category and should be identified as such. Footnote, that is one of the reasons why the government was saying to these universities, if you don't stop all that, what I just read, then you will not get the funding. Back to the letter. University leaders need to model an honest struggle over values and their application to complex policy issues in our world. If politicians or other power brokers seek to impede or co-opt that struggle, they must be called out as impediments to academic freedom and the university's true purpose. Campus leaders will face more challenges in coming months as students confront wars and threats to democracy. As we have seen, more indifference will only fuel anger and fear. Footnote, that's a hard lesson to learn because in the future there's going to be wars. If you remember, Kent State had a war. How many people talked about that? Look what happened to that. People died because of that. This war that's going on with Hamas. People are dying, not in colleges yet, but if it keeps going like it's been going and the violence keeps ensuing, who knows what could happen? It won't be a good thing. Back to the letter. In our sharply divided, violent era, leaders cannot hide behind administrative procedures. They must find a way to articulate common values and promote discussions that address controversial world events for the purpose of learning and discovery. That is the only way to educate citizens to improve the world rather than repeat past mistakes. Kind of like I just said, footnote, Kent State, letter. Universities therefore need to cultivate new leaders and to incentivize current ones to articulate moral vision and act with steadfast commitment to the core mission of higher education. Raising money and balancing powerful interest groups will remain important, but it must be secondary. Connection to the classroom, the archive, and the laboratory is where the purpose of university work resides. It is where the most fundamental learning and discovery occurs. Presidents and deans should come more immediately from these settings. They should be active scholars and proven teachers who embody what the university is really about. They can speak with authenticity to controversial and encourage serious discussions of difficult topics. They understand how American universities can and do change the world. In this new year, a number of elite institutions will select new presidents. They can collectively change what we value in our campus leaders. The United States leads the world in higher education. It is time that we remember why. Great letter. Again, Jeremy Suri. Have any questions or comments? you can give yours truly a call. Drop me a line, 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. Email address is parkerman2011@gmail.com, parkerman2011@gmail.com. Again, Claudia Gang. Lot of pressure. But it took all that pressure. She kind of had to take that scarf off her neck when she resigned. It was really choking her with everything that was happening. Wow. So what do you think about this Hamas war? How it's affected the world? I've done some shows on this, and I'm kind of like you. There's so much out there to take in. And on my shows that I've done, we talked about the war, we talked about the college, we talked about the college campuses. We talked about people that have protested in letters. And now with this breaking news, we just had to tell you guys, wow, man, the backlash of this is incredible. Is it going to be big backlash? Are more university presidents going to quit? Are they going to resign? It took Gay a long time to resign. Was this a bad look on Harvard? Yes. Was it a sad look? Yes. No matter whether she's black, white, male, female, if there's plagiarism accusations, well, you know what? If you're making somebody the face of your institution, make sure you do all of your background so it won't come back. So if the war hadn't started, when would they have eventually found out about Gay? And went after her because of the plagiarism. She denied it. There was over 40 instances of plagiarism. And on one of my shows, we have it where I have her words that she wrote, and then I have the words that she plagiarized from. Stay tuned for that. If you haven't seen it, when you do see it, you'll be like, oh, wow. I make you part of the show. You get to see in her own words, not just me talking about it, but showing you examples. And now she eventually got caught. We'd like to thank again that newspaper that put it out there, because we kind of look at newspapers online and hard copy as not being worth anything. But newspapers still do break the news. And again, with the combination of the internet, if we're going to do things, let's combine our forces, the internet and print copy. And we get the stories told where nobody will tell them. So, breaking news, again, the backlash. Is it going to make you question the jobs of presidents of universities? Is it going to make the presidents of universities question themselves? Is it going to make the universities question who they bring on? Again, it's sad. Since 1600, she's had the shortest span. I don't know what the span is, but it's short. We'll have to do a show. We'll talk about that, another show. But first African American, because when I saw it, I was like, I didn't know he was African American at Harvard, and the second female. So who's going to be the interim professor? And until this war is over with, and maybe other wars, how is this going to determine how our colleges are going to be? They shouldn't be a place where you get harassed. You pay money, parents pay money, you get grants. You should be able to go to that college and learn what you need to learn to make yourself a better person, and not feel that you're going through mental anguish because you're being harassed color-wise, ethic-wise, belief-wise. Why would you have to go to college to get that abuse? And the colleges not back you, and the colleges make people pay, literally, for what they're doing, for to either get thrown out, or grants taken away that they may have gotten at the college. Something to think about. So you're watching, again, emergency, hot breaking news on Dr. Gay and a resignation. Keep tuning into the show. We try to keep it honest. We try to keep it real. And we try to give you the facts. We want you to know this is what we're giving you. And these shows are kind of like Cliff Notes. So if you want to know more about the story, get online, read, watch the news. We keep it simple, we keep it honest, we keep it real. Stay tuned for the episodes coming up. We'd like to thank you too. Don't forget to hit the like button, hit the share button, and subscribe. Tell your friends. Go to Patreon page, contribute, get more shows. We get more people watching the shows. We get guests. We get commentary. You can't get it anywhere else. You can't get it anywhere else. But we give you the Parker twist. Remember, you can contact me 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. Email address is parkerman2011@gmail.com, parkerman2011@gmail.com. I'm Anthony Parker Alexander, and you are watching Keeping It Honest. God bless.